Warning, this video contains graphic scenes of violence, coarse language, and depicts mental health crises. If you cannot handle this, please click away to another of my videos. For everyone else, sit back and enjoy. It is no secret that I love the Dead Space universe. I love its story, I love its themes, I love its style and art choices, and most of all, I love the weapons. Now, those who haven't played Dead Space will see it just as another alien or zombie horror shooter. Which, yeah, I can see the issue with it. It's not winning points in that department. But its claim to fame was its central combat mechanic. Aim for the limbs. Nothing like a good meat blender to get the old dead heart pumping. Back in February of 2023, we got Dead Space Remake, a complete ground-up retelling of the original game from 2008. The game goes through the same beats as the original, but adds in or changes some things to keep it a fresh experience, while still doing its best to be faithful to the original. But a fair warning for this. I am going to be comparing both the old game and the remake, even though I don't have footage of the old game. You can't really talk about one without bringing up the other. Plus, it helps to show what they improved and what they should have left alone. But enough of that, let's get into it.
Isaac, it's me. I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I just wish I could talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. Strange. Such a little thing.
The opening to Dead Space is a decent one. We start with a message from our main character's girlfriend alerting us to something being wrong. We play as Isaac Clarke, a systems engineer for the Concordance Extraction Company, or CEC. And we have an immediate difference from the first game. Isaac fucking talks.
Ishimura is not a job you turn down, but 6 months apart with only vid calls, it's rough.
Isaac, back in the original game, never spoke, never uttered one word, only screamed, yelled, and let the guns do the talking for him. Now in this, he speaks, played by his original voice actor from 2 and 3, Gunnar Wright, which I'm perfectly happy with. Isaac being able to speak gives him much more agency within the story, and some other stuff I'll talk about later. We are also introduced to systems tech Kendra Daniels and our chief of security Captain Hammond, plus 2 additional meatbags. We are here to repair the planet-cracking ship, the Ishimura, as apparently it's gone dark, which for a ship that big, really shouldn't have had that problem. But we are also here for another reason. Isaac wants to meet up with his girlfriend Nicole, the girl from the call earlier.
We're losing control. Fuck! We're off course! Daniel!
Guidance system override isn't responding.
Shit! We're coming in too hot. It's gonna smash us into the hull. Jen! Aim for that emergency stabilizer. There! The blue light! It might slow us down. Got it. Drop the flash shield. Everyone brace yourself. Everyone okay?
I'm good.
I'll live.
After making a precise, totally planned landing that we could walk away from, we are finally inside the Ishimura, and can I say, you'd think there'd be a lot more people here. After trying to check in with the Ishimura's crew, and to let them know about our sick, totally planned landing, we don't find anyone around. Of course, just because no one is here, doesn't mean the job clock stops. So Isaac checks the ship's systems, and, well...
know what's wrong with it. Ain't got no gas in it.
The ship's diagnostic check shows that the Ishimura is completely fucked, and we learn the reason why right away.
Let's get those elevators running.
There's something in here with us.
Up there! Oh, God! Ken! No! Daniel, get the doors open!
Okay, so we need to talk about the opening to Dead Space. This intro is fast, loud, and sets the tone for the rest of the game, and it's flawed. This is literally the first few minutes of the game, and there was little build up to the attack and introducing the monsters of this game. This was the same problem with the original. We got little to no time to just breathe in the atmosphere. Come on, let me lick the walls and use the washrooms. If we just had a little more time to just feel how empty the ship is, I think this would work way better. But this is a small complaint. Where were we? Oh yeah, somewhere between screwed and fucked. Now that we are separated from our group, we get our first weapon with a very obvious message above it, which leads to the main gameplay mechanic and the kinds of weapons we will be using. The things we fight in Dead Space aren't your basic bitch zombies. These are necromorphs, reanimated human corpses that don't give two flying fucks. Shoot them in the head, just makes them swing wildly. Shoot them in the body, nope. The only way to put these things down is to cut off the limbs. Hence why we get told to do it over.
It didn't die. We shot that fucker right between the eyes and it didn't die. Smith had to shoot its fucking arms and legs off. For God's sake, send help!
And over.
Isaac, don't bother shooting those fuckers in the head. Doesn't even slow them down.
Okay. The only way is hacking them apart. Those arms, their legs.
Does that even kill them? Or do they just stop moving?
And over. Again. Funny thing, apparently when they had people test the original game, the playtesters kept doing body and head shots, even when told multiple times to, you know. This also leads to the weapons we'll be using throughout the game, and oh boy, I love these things. We are making use of our tools of the trade. With necromorphs being heavily resistant to military-grade weapons, we are pushed to use the tools in the Dead Space universe. We first get our hands on the humble plasma cutter, a tool used for cutting wires and softer ores, but now repurposed into our pistol-like weapon in the game. And slowly, throughout the game, we will get access to other weapons like the line gun, the flamethrower, the Ripper, and oh, my baby, the contact beam. Each of these weapons are tools that we would use in mining, ship salvaging, and other wacky sci-fi jobs. But here, they get the new job of being my handy helpers in necromorph dissection, which, aside from the pulse rifle being absolute trash in the remake, they kept the guns pretty faithful to the original, or gave them much-needed in-game tweaks to make them fun weapons to use. But back to the story. After killing our first enemy variant, the Slasher, a very common form of necromorph with very easy-to-hit limbs, we reunite with Hammond and Kendra, where we learn that the ship's transit system has been damaged. Since we are on the side of the ship that has easier access to the repair bay, we volunteer to fix it. This is the part where we get access to the stasis module, a tool that allows the user to slow down hazards like spinning blades, electric wires, or maybe, say, some really dangerous and angry corpses. Well, yeah, but we can also use it to slow down machines, so we can get a broken tram off the tracks. Once we get the tram system fixed up, we call back Kendra and Hammond, who inform Isaac that the ship is on lockdown still, and that the only way to lift it is to get the captain's personal codes. And the captain is dead! So we gotta get to the medical deck, which conveniently, Nicole is a doctor, so she might still be there. When we get to medical, shit has definitely gone awry, as there is a barricade that blocks our access to the morgue. Don't know how blocking one door stops things that use the vents to get around, but hey, it leads us to getting the Kinesis module, a helpful tool that allows us to basically just move things, pick up stuff to yeet at necromorphs, or change the batteries. Of course, we get the stuff we need to blow the barricade, but it's doing that where we learn of something else the remake throws our way. Secondary missions and item collection. In the original Dead Space, it was a simple, linear trek from one chapter to the next. However, in the remake, we get some extra side objectives that have either moved off the beaten path or allow us to revisit areas for some extra goodies or extra things that add on to the story. These stories fill in the blanks on things the original Dead Space left up to vague answers or giving us a bit of extra things for other characters, which we will cover when it's appropriate. After getting the barricade opened and finding out that Nicole was dealing with tons of problems as the necromorph outbreak got worse and worse, we find the captain's body in the morgue, and I'll let this scene explain itself. Mwah! Perfection! Something that the remake does, and which I really appreciate, is that the horror happens when Isaac is in the same room. Back in the original, lots of the scary stuff happened with you being on the other side of a window, or just unreachable. Here, the game puts Isaac in the same room as the horror, and we get such good reactions from him in one of the sickest and most fucked up transformation scenes. After we kill the captain a second time, we get his access codes, as well as learning that we lack clearance for certain things. So we will have to either get it through progressing the story, or getting special key items to give us that access later. We also learn that the engines are offline, and that we have to get them back in working order, or we are going to be making a Salvagers Day a very happy one. While we mosey on down to the engines, let's talk about Isaac and Hammond for a hot minute. With Isaac being able to speak his mind, this means that he can give his engineering input into conversations between him and the others, which is really good. It shows that Isaac is an engineer that knows what the fuck he's doing. However, where Isaac gets to show off his engineering know-how, this means that Hammond, who in the original game told you what to do to fix the engines and other problems around the ship, now has nothing to really do? Which leads to him filling more of a scout role with the group and going quiet for a few parts of the game, which he didn't originally. Once we get the engines fixed, we hightail it up to the bridge, because although we got the engines working, we forgot about all the garbage and the rocks that are above the ship. As well, our self-defense cannons aren't working. So yeah, shit's bad. Here on the bridge, we basically meet most of the different necromorph variants, from the small lurkers acting as ranged support, to the big-ass brutes, chunky bitches who will absolutely destroy your asshole. Each one has a varied way of being handled, and some weapons are better at handling some threats than others. The line gun is very useful for dealing with fucking lurkers, or the flamethrower being a war crime for the swarmers. Either way, proper tools for proper problems. Like the giant annoying cannon minigame that no one likes.
Targeting system. Warning. Hull integrity compromised. Calibration complete.
Oh. It's not shit anymore. Well, that's boring. I have nothing to talk about anymore. Anyway, Once we clear the debris field, we get a surprise call. Nicole's alive! Back to the medical deck! Well, at least she understands setting the mood. Returning back to the medical lab has us meet Dr. Callus Mercer, someone who, when we meet them, proves to be one sick, twisted bastard. Mercer has turned medical into a fucking horror show. Fellow crewmates that have been experimented on, left out to die to necromorphs, or just to be infected. All in all, I am giving him a 1-star review on gooddoctors.com. We do eventually find Nicole, and sadly, she was a VTuber the whole damn time. But we also get to meet Mercer in the flesh. As well, we get to meet my worst nightmare, something that won't stay down.
Oh shit, here we go again.
This is Mercer's greatest work, the Hunter, a necromorph who mechanically functions as a regular slasher, who can take a few extra hits, but also has the annoying as fuck ability to regenerate, which adds an extra element to the combat. Not only do you have to fight other necromorphs, but the regenerating degenerate is constantly gunning it for you, so you have to juggle keeping the hunter dismembered and in stasis, while also fighting the other monsters that want to cut you down. However, even Mercer's hunter can't stand an average Canadian winter's level of cold, and we stop it by luring it into cryo and freezing it. But Mercer has run off, and we learn that the hunter was a miner from the planet below named Brant Harris, a person who was arrested for murder and brought aboard the Ishimura. There's this whole side quest finding out what happened to him, and yeah, it's fucked up. But now that we have medical sorted again, anyone else finding it hard to breathe in here? Oh yeah, while we were running away, we ran into one of Mercer's victims, saying that the Hydroponics deck was spitting out bad air throughout the ship. So we better go deal with that. So while we bust our ass down to Hydroponics, I want to talk about gameplay changes that were made to upgrading our armor and weapons. In Dead Space, we have these things called power nodes. Nodes basically were used for upgrading our weapons, armor, and opening up special doors that required them for extra loot. But since doors have been changed to having proper clearance for them, nodes are solely for upgrades. But that's not all. Weapons originally just needed nodes to fill their upgrade trees. Now they also require special weapon attachments to unlock more upgrades and special abilities they have within those trees, incentivizing you to go back to other areas of the ship to find anything you may have missed, which I really like. It helps us explore the Ishimura, gets us more familiar with the environment, and see how the decks are changing as we progress through the game, trying to upgrade our weapons and gear. Anyway, how's Hydroponics doing? Yeah, no. Shit's fucked. Here in Hydroponics, we are informed by lead doctor Elizabeth Cross that a creature called the Leviathan has taken up residence down in food storage and is using necromorphs called Weezers to make the ship a toxic environment where no one can survive. Luckily, we got a special compound from the med lab to help take care of the Weezers and weaken the Leviathan enough to kill it. And once we finish up in Hydroponics, we get a call from Hammond, who's been out of contact for a bit as he was following the unitologists on board the ship and seeing what they were doing. It seems that they found something called the marker, which sends out a signal and cuts off our comms, leading to Kendra, who has been guiding us from the server room, to suggest we send out a distress beacon, which was located down in the mining deck. But we are down in the mining deck now, and we have a job ahead of us. The engineers of the mining deck have sabotaged and booby-trapped the entire deck to ward off necromorphs and other humans. Probably to stop the unitologists from messing with the distress beacon. Isaac also has a really good line here.
Just hope you can reach it through these malfunctions.
Not malfunctions. Traps. The miner's way of holding the line.
But basically, we get an upgrade to our clearance codes, and along with completing some extra side stuff, we are able to put the beacon on a captured asteroid and launch it into space. Though we also alarmingly ran to a recording of a guy named Jacob Temple, who has gone off to do some work for Mercer. Oh no! But little time to worry about that, as our distress signal has caught the attention of the USG Valor, a warship that picked up the pod with Chen's corpse in it. Ah, fuck.
Now you fucked up! You have fucked up now!
So, we try to warn the Valor not to take the pod on board, or at least not to open it up, but if you remember the beginning of the game, the comms are down. So we rush back to the bridge, get some extra side quests done there too, which we come to the damaged comms array. Basically just a simple puzzle of connecting the lines to the array to reboot it and power it up. Though it still isn't working, because the Leviathan from Hydroponics is still alive and latched onto the array's deployment door. So we gotta go outside and teach this blobby fuck the same lesson again.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
Once we kill the blobby little fuck, the communications array is fully deployed, and Kendra tries to warn the Valor about the pod, but it was too late. The Necromorph Chen had caused so much damage while we were dealing with the array that the Valor smashes into the side of the Ishimura, which causes many more problems. Enough problems that Hammond is able to call us again and declare the mission fucked, and that we need to escape the Ishimura, and the Valor will be able to help in that regard. Once we get aboard the Valor, there's a couple of things wrong here. And I'm not talking about the corpses. Throughout the game, we have been finding audio and text logs which basically help expand the universe of Dead Space. It's how we learn what unitologists are and what's been going on aboard the Ishimura. But in the Valor, they were prepared for a full sweep and clean operation, which included us. As well, the Valor came back with the oh-so-fun surprise of nuclear fucking warheads! Which we have to disable.
Handle 12 megatons? You know I'm not a nuclear engineer, right?
It's here in the Valor we meet the last variant of Necromorph, the Twitcher. The Twitcher is fast, will destroy your asshole if you panic while it charges, and is armored, making it resistant to your shots. But in exchange, the Twitcher has a weak spot. Since they are infected special forces units with their own stasis modules, if you shoot the module, then you get a free stasis on them, slowing them down temporarily to get some extra hits on them. Pretty clever. Though the Valor is completely fucked, its special energy core isn't, and Isaac and Hammond fight through the Valor to retrieve it. When we get there, though, Hammond is jumped by Chen and kills both himself and the Necromorph after being stabbed by it. Which is kinda lame compared to how he died to a brute attack back in the original game. So, let's talk about Remake Hammond. Hammond was originally there to give us objectives, to basically encourage us to keep going. And now that Isaac can talk and pretty much does all the tech stuff that Hammond was there for, he doesn't really do much now in the story. And his character gets pulled even more than it originally was in the original game from 2008. Now, they tried to fix it by letting him focus on his 2 dead security crewmates, but here's the problem with that. We don't know Chen, and we didn't know the other girl. Trust me, you get very little from this. And they try to make this a big thing with him, that he feels guilty about everything. Which, again, goes back to my earlier mentioning of if we had more time to sit with the opening and learn about who Chen and the other person was, maybe it would have had a more of effect in the game. But here, Hammond is just not present when he should be, or is just not involved in any of the plot that goes on until way later. But besides the point. Once we get the core back over to the Ishimura from the self-destructing Valor, we get contacted by a man who's been sabotaging the entire ship from the very beginning, Dr. Terrence Kyne, a former unitologist and the lead scientist of the Ishimura. Kyne begs us to not just leave the ship, but to deal with the marker and get it back down onto the planet below. Which means we now have to talk about what the hell happened here to make sense of all of this. A few weeks before Isaac and his crew arrived, the miner colony on Aegis 7 had uncovered the marker, a giant strange rock that emits weird signals and energy. The religious cult known as Unitology found out about the discovery and immediately dispatched Captain Benjamin Mathias and his ship, the Ishimura, to go retrieve the artifact, as it is a symbol of their religion. However, when the Ishimura arrived, the colony was not doing too hot. Multiple homicides, paranoia, and some unknown infection were ravaging the colony, and Mathias ordered the colony quarantined while they brought up a murderer named Brant Harris and the marker aboard the ship. However, the marker was responsible for all the problems going on in the colony, so when it was brought aboard, it started causing problems immediately there as well. Murders escalated, paranoia affected the crew, and crew members went missing during regular shifts. Dr. Kyne tried to alert the captain to the horrors going on around him, but the captain had clearly lost his mind and had sabotaged both the comms array and escape pods. Dr. Kyne had the captain put into custody as the problems on the ship got worse and worse, but while trying to sedate him, the mad captain struggled against the guards, and Kyne accidentally stabbed Mathias in the eye, killing him. Kyne would run off, being chased by security for murder of the captain, but while that was happening, the necromorphs began to overtake the ship, and Dr. Mercer would create the Hunter from Brant Harris in the confusion of it all. The Unitologists aboard the ship would lose their minds and capture the marker, bringing it to the crew deck and locking it down there. So we now know what happened aboard the ship, and we know that we have to get the marker off the ship because this will just keep happening if anyone else comes to get it. Hence why the Valor was here. They were sent to retrieve the marker and kill any witnesses. Once we get back to the crew deck... Yeah, it's worse here. The crew deck is the last new deck we visit, and since it's where the crew ate, slept, and shit in, you can expect there to be comfy areas, a nice basketball court, a decent bar for workers who aren't on shift, and lots of necromorphs to mess up your day. We also encounter Mercer and the Hunter again here, and we see Mercer kill the miner known as Jacob Temple, that guy we saw from the mining deck. We have slowly been following his story around the ship as he looked for his girlfriend Elizabeth, who, if you remember, we met in Hydroponics a few chapters ago. Mercer has been trying to experiment on the marker, and the reason why he killed Temple was because the engineer refused to help him anymore, leading to him to try to bring Isaac into the fold, but Isaac tells him where to shove it, and the Hunter decides to teach us where we can shove it. The goal on this deck is simple: clear up all the gunk around the marker by destroying giant sacks all throughout the crew deck. But we have to do this while fighting massive hordes of necromorphs, the Hunter, and the effects of the marker. The marker affects the mind of those in proximity to it, and we begin to hear voices and hallucinate throughout this chapter. But there are two things I want to talk about most of all through this chapter: Nicole, and why Isaac is here. I haven't brought up Nicole much because I wanted to talk about her and Isaac here. Throughout the game, we have had a secondary mission of tracking Nicole's activity throughout the ship, seeing what she was doing before and during the chaos. Nicole was not only a doctor, but she was a therapist and someone who helped people escape the Unitologist cult, which is actually how Isaac and her met. Isaac's mom was a fervent Unitologist, and Isaac wanted his mom to get help. Later, Isaac and Nicole would begin to date, and eventually over time, Nicole would sign off on Isaac's mom being better, and he would encourage her to go aboard the Ishimura, because it was a great opportunity for her career. But after Nicole left, Isaac's mom would snap, killing his father, and then herself. Even worse, Isaac would be barred from even seeing his parents' corpses because the church confiscated them and took Isaac's home and belongings. Isaac, both in grief and in rage, calls Nicole, and not knowing what Nicole is going through, blames her for what happened, causing their relationship to fracture. Hence why Isaac volunteered to come on the mission. He wanted to apologize in person and fix what he broke. While Nicole has been dealing with the insanity of the ship, tracking what Mercer did to Brant Harris, who was originally her patient, and being scrutinized by her fellow crewmates for helping people leave a dangerous and self-destructive cult. She has gone all over the ship, and here in the crew deck, we learn that even though Isaac had hurt her, she still trusted him enough to try and get a message out to him, which was the message we saw at the beginning of the game. Once we get the last of the gunk around the marker cleared out and meet up with Kyne to fully understand why we have to bring the marker back down to the planet, the marker can help contain the threat it started, and it's sort of sentient, wanting to be returned to the pedestal it was found on. So Isaac agrees with Kyne, much to Kendra's annoyance. But hey, we have the Valor's drive core, and she can't go anywhere without us, so 2-1 vote wins. Once we get the marker secure in the shuttle bay inside the crew deck, we install the drive core and have our final showdown with the hunter Brant Harris. Tell me, who wins? A regenerating degenerate or a ship engine that emits the heat of the sun?
Test fire in progress. Stand clear.
However, after we kill the hunter, Mercer storms in and in a rage begs the marker to kill Isaac. But he, the marker, and Isaac are all dragged down into different parts of the ship by giant tentacles. Isaac ends up in the server rooms near medical, while the marker was dragged violently down into the cargo hold. Isaac gets in contact with Kendra and Kyne, and the three agree that while Isaac gets the marker, Kendra will book it to the crew deck to meet up with Kyne, and they will regroup in the hangar bay with the marker. Heading back down to the hangar deck, we head straight for cargo and fighting through more hordes of necromorphs, giant tentacles, and an annoying design for a fucking cargo hold. We get the marker back and push it up to the hangar bay and get it in position for the shuttle. Once we get that secured, we rush to the shuttle and all will be fine.
Nicole, is she here?
There's always a twist in horror, isn't there? Yeah, as it turns out, Kendra is a government agent who was sent to secure the marker, and the reason why the Valor was nearby was because it was to back her up. And let's take some time to talk about old Kendra and Remake Kendra. Remake Kendra is weaker than her 2008 counterpart. Kendra's job in the story wasn't just to give you access to the ship's systems and be a fire alarm. She tried her best in the original game to build doubt about Hammond and the mission, dropping a few questions here and there, and making the player question if Hammond is telling the truth, and that he knew nothing about it, or that you were crew expendable. Kendra would also be the one to mess with our group's communication and keep Hammond from speaking to us, hence why we couldn't talk to him from time to time. Kendra was blocking us, but Remake Kendra? She isn't subtle about it. From the start, she is trying way too hard to get us not to trust Hammond. And though she did show genuine concern for Isaac from time to time, it was way too clear from how hostile she was that she wasn't to be trusted either. Which I think makes her weaker compared to her old counterpart. Leaving Isaac behind, Kendra reveals that Aegis 7 was an illegal world due to the government locking it down 200 years ago, and the marker we've been dealing with the entire game was a human-made copy of the original marker found on Earth. However, the same thing that happened to the Ishimura happened 200 years ago, hence why the planet was abandoned and the original project was buried. But the CEC got desperate for resources, and with some maneuvering with politics and money, they began an illegal operation of mining Aegis 7. Finding the marker was somewhat of a complete accident. But that doesn't matter. Kendra is fleeing with the marker, and we are stranded aboard the Ishimura. Until Nicole gives us a call. Now, we have run into Nicole earlier in the game, while we were trying to get the distress beacon. We told her, after retrieving it, to go hide, and luckily for us, she made it to the hangar. We get up to her in the control room, and she tells us how to get the shuttle back. And we even get to apologize for what happened between Isaac and her if we completed the secondary objectives. Once we get the shuttle back, Kendra used the onboard escape shuttle and landed back on Aegis 7, where we are heading. But before we leave, we are allowed to go to finish any side quests, collectathons, and get any final upgrades we need. Most of this is for a new Game Plus playthrough, but there is something we do need to talk about later. We get aboard the shuttle and head down to Aegis 7. The planet is rocky, dusty, and has a colony full of necrovores that we have to fight our way through to get the marker back to where it belongs. Nicole goes off into the control room on the colony while we take the marker through the storage bays of Aegis 7. Having fun defensive encounters and getting the colony's power grid up lets us get the marker back to its pedestal, and we have successfully... Fuck! Kendra, who at this point is sick of our shit, tells Isaac to wake up to reality and that Nicole isn't Nicole, showing us the truth of what happened.
Isaac, it's me. Oh, I wish I could talk to you. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about everything. I just wish I could talk to someone. It's all falling apart here. I can't believe what's happening. Strange. Such a little thing. Just had a talk. That's all this research was in the end. Not much, is it? Just trying to make it listen when he begged for convergence. But I had a different prayer. It spoke. And then it listened. Make this stop, I said. Maybe it understood, but... I can't return what was taken. Why can't I see you again, Isaac? I loved you. I always loved you.
That's a bit of a sour note, isn't it? That's right. All throughout the story where Isaac has been contacted by Nicole and the very few times we have interacted through the game was nothing but a big old illusion. The marker was making us see that the girl from Hydroponics, Elizabeth Cross, as Nicole, and she was seeing Isaac as the deceased Jacob Temple. Kendra has enough of our craziness and shoots Cross before she takes the marker, and we have to chase after her, as when the marker was put back on the pedestal, it activated an EMP wave, knocking out the colony's gravity tethers that were stabilizing the giant continent-sized rock that the Ishimura was holding up. Without that, well, let's just say Aegis 7 won't be anyone's problem anymore. Something that I want to point out here before we continue with the rest of the story, it is heavily implied here that Isaac knew that Nicole was dead. And if that is true, if that implication is actually real, that goes to show just how worse this situation was for Isaac, because this man wanted to make up for snapping at his girlfriend and wanted to apologize for his mistake. And the fact that he will never get that fucking closure is even worse. And what's even fucking funnier in a more dark and twisted way if you take the first letter of every chapter in Dead Space, it spells out Nicole is dead. Which, holy shit, that is so fucking dark. We chase Kendra back up to the landing area, and after putting in some final upgrades and purchasing anything that we need, we chase Kendra up the shuttle ramp, and we see that exactly what the marker was containing. And Kendra gets to be the first to experience it!
Here!
The hive mind.
Grab my hand!
Isaac.
Just as satisfying as it was back in 2008. Anyway, the hive mind.
Come on, then! 'Cause this is all I got left!
The hive mind of Dead Space, both back in 2008 and the remake, isn't hard, and it's not meant to be. It's a big-ass spectacle fight, where you get to put the big thing down. It's not that different from the original version, but this time it just shoots the bad juice. And once we kill the hive mind, Isaac gets aboard the shuttle and flies off as Aegis 7, the colony, and the Ishimura are fully destroyed. After all of that, Isaac is left alone in the darkness of the ship. As he sees a recording of Nicole's last message, one more time, he turns it off. And we get one last jump scare. However, if you thought that was the end, well, you have misjudged. Remember, there is New Game Plus. New Game Plus allows you to go through the game again with your weapons and upgrades, but unable to access certain story areas until you get to those points in the story again. However, there is a new collectible to be found during the story. Marker Fragments. Marker fragments are found throughout the different points on the ship, but if you find all of them and bring them to Captain Matthias' room on the crew deck, you get access to a secret ending in the game, and as well, it changes dialogue as exampled here.
For what it's worth, we made a great team. You'll find another way off the Ishimura. I mean, you're one hell of an engineer.
Your experiment's gonna kill us all! Daniels!
It was all for nothing.
For what it's worth, we made a great team. You'll find another way off the Ishimura. I mean, you're one hell of an engineer.
Your experiment's gonna kill us all! Daniels!
She can't take the marker. She doesn't understand.
I actually really like this because it implies that Isaac was not talking the normal way through the first playthrough, and this is how everyone else was hearing him earlier in the game. In fact, during the mining deck section, when we meet up with Nicole again, you can fly over to where you met up with Nicole earlier, and there's a recording there that shows an actual conversation between Elizabeth and Isaac. And Elizabeth is saying things completely different from what Isaac is hearing, but he is still saying the same things that he said to Nicole, which, awesome. But once you get all the marker fragments around the ship and put them on the funny table, the secret ending is unlocked, and we get to see something even more fucked up. Isaac drew on the walls. No, but actually, the marker's effects have taken extreme hold of him, and he has been drawing marker scripture and blueprints on how to build a marker, and is seeing Nicole in a more warm, loving persona. This is actually closer to how the government finds him in between Dead Space 1 and 2. So, actually, quite a cool secret. Dead Space is one of my favorite series of all time. And after what EA did to Visceral, it has left a bit of a sour taste in my mouth. I was worried and skeptical about the Dead Space remake, and though the pain of what happened before is still there, the remake is so good and stands equal to the original, which is what a remake should do, in my opinion. The game plays very well, the graphics are amazing, the guns are retooled and balanced, which I appreciate, and even though Kendra and Hammond aren't as good, and Kyne is worse, everyone else in the cast is just amazing, and it's just... God, it's good to have Dead Space back! Hopefully Motive is working on the Dead Space 2 remake. Thanks for watching, and thank you for indulging me in this. This Christmas season means a lot to me, as I have been doing content creation for a while, and just getting to share these thoughts and opinions with you guys means a lot to me. Happy holidays, everyone, and I will see you in the new year. I love you guys so much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share the video around. See you next year, everyone.